Two 5-year-old girls waited on the same park bench night after night. They weren't crying. They weren't begging. They were keeping a promise. When a cold billionaire finally asked why and chose to stay, the answer cracked his armor and changed what home, family, and rescue truly mean for everyone watching worldwide. The Halstead estate never slept, but it never lived either. Graham Halstead moved through the marble hallway with the quiet precision of a man who disliked noise, including his own thoughts. His footsteps echoed, bounced off glass walls, high ceilings, imported stone. The kind of house magazines loved, the kind of house that felt too empty even when full. At 44, Graham owned more buildings than most people could count. Luxury towers, mixed-use developments. Entire blocks of the city carried his signature. His calendar was packed weeks in advance. His phone never stopped vibrating. And yet nothing waited for him. "Cancel the charity dinner," he said into his phone, staring out at the city lights below. "Double the donation. I won't attend." A pause. A polite acknowledgement. The call ended. Atlas, his German shepherd, padded up beside him, nails clicking softly against the floor. The dog leaned into Graham's leg, not demanding attention, just existing. Graham rested a hand on Atlas's head. It was the only touch he allowed himself these days. The house smelled faintly of polish and nothing else. No photographs lined the walls, no drawings taped to refrigerators, no shoes by the door that didn't belong to him. Rosa Delgado, his housekeeper of nearly 2 decades, was finishing up in the kitchen. She paused when she noticed a small framed photo resting on the counter, her mistake. Graham saw it before she could move it. Children. Laughter. A woman glowing with something he couldn't name. "Your family?" he asked before thinking better of it. Rosa smiled instantly. "My grandchildren. 5 of them now." Something tightened in Graham's chest. Just for a second. "You should put that away," he said coolly. "Lock up when you leave." Rosa nodded, gathering her things. When the front door closed behind her, the silence rushed back in. Atlas looked up at him. "Just us tonight," Graham said quietly. The house did not answer. Night fell quickly over Hollowmere City. Graham clipped Atlas's leash and stepped into the cold, welcoming the bite of the air. The streets near Maple Row Park were nearly empty, exactly how he preferred them. No small talk, no interruptions, just movement and thought. This walk was his only ritual, not tied to business. Leaves skittered across the pavement as they entered the park. Streetlights cast long shadows, stretching trees into dark silhouettes. Somewhere in the distance, traffic hummed like a reminder of a world that never slowed. Graham's mind drifted uninvited. Rosa's photo, the way her face had softened when she spoke about her grandchildren. He shook it off. Attachment complicated things. He had learned that early, in college, back when dreams had faces and names, back when he believed connection was something you built before success, not after. Atlas slowed suddenly. "Come on," Graham said, tightening the leash slightly. The dog didn't budge. Atlas's ears were perked forward, attention fixed ahead. Toward one of the older park benches, half hidden beneath a sprawling oak tree. Atlas, Graham warned. "Heel." For the first time in years, the dog ignored him. Atlas pulled forward gently but insistently. Annoyed, Graham followed, already preparing a sharp reprimand for whoever had decided to use a public bench as a bed. "This isn't a hotel," he called out. The figure on the bench stirred, then sat up. 2 small shapes emerged from the shadows. Not teenagers, not troublemakers. Children. 2 little girls, no older than 5, pressed close together beneath an oversized coat. A worn backpack rested at their feet. Their clothes were clean, but faded hands tucked into sleeves that were slightly too long. The taller one shifted forward instinctively, placing herself between Graham and the smaller girl. Atlas wagged his tail. Graham stopped breathing. "Sir, we're not doing anything wrong." The voice was small but steady. Graham stared, disarmed by how calm she sounded. The taller girl held her ground, chin lifted just enough to be brave. The smaller one peeked out from behind her, eyes wide and curious rather than afraid. "Do you know what time it is?" Graham asked, keeping his voice level. "Yes," the taller girl answered. "It's nighttime." A pause. "And where are your parents?" The girls exchanged a glance, quick, practiced. "Our mom," the smaller one said, stepping forward half an inch, "told us to wait here." "How long have you been waiting?" Graham asked. The taller girl squeezed her sister's hand. "5 sleeps." The words landed heavier than they should have. Atlas reached them first, sniffing gently before sitting down beside the bench. He leaned against the taller girl's knee as if he belonged there. "She promised she'd come back," the smaller girl added, matter of fact. "So we stayed." Graham crouched slightly, lowering himself to their level. "What are your names?" Maya said, the taller one. "This is Piper." "I'm Graham," he replied. Piper tilted her head, studying him carefully. "You look lonely," she said. Maya gasped softly. "Piper, it's okay," Piper continued. "Our mom says lonely people don't always know it yet." The park seemed to go quiet around them. Graham swallowed. "You're not lost?" he asked gently. Maya shook her head. "No, sir." Piper nodded. "We're waiting." Something inside Graham Halstead, something that had been sealed for decades, cracked open in the cold night air. And for the first time in a very long time, he stayed exactly where he was. Graham stayed crouched, the cold stone pressing through his coat. Up close, the girls looked even smaller. 5 years old, maybe. Their cheeks were pink from the night air, hair neatly tied, as if someone had taken time with them that morning. Nothing about them looked neglected, just misplaced. "Sweethearts," Graham said carefully. "Why didn't your mom leave you somewhere warm?" Maya hesitated. Piper answered instead. "She said the park is easy to find," Piper explained. "She said if anything got confusing, she'd know where we were." Graham nodded slowly. "And where did she go to talk to people?" Maya said. "About work." "When was that?" "Before the sun went to sleep," Piper replied. Maya added softly, 5 sleeps ago." The words wrapped around Graham's chest and tightened. Atlas shifted closer to the girls, pressing his side against Maya's leg. She smiled down at him instinctively and rested a small hand on his head. "He's warm," she said. Graham exhaled through his nose. He usually doesn't sit that close to strangers. Piper looked at Atlas seriously. "Then he knows we're not trouble." Graham felt the faintest pull at the corner of his mouth. "You've been here every night?" he asked. Maya nodded. "We take turns staying awake." Piper lifted her chin proudly. "So the bench doesn't feel lonely." That did it. Graham turned his face away for a brief moment, staring into the dark trees until the tightness eased. When he looked back, Piper was watching him closely. "Are you mad?" she asked. "No," Graham said immediately. "I'm not mad. People get mad when things don't go like they planned," Piper said. Maya squeezed her sister's hand. "Mom said waiting means love." The sentence settled between them. Graham had closed billion-dollar deals without blinking, but this made his throat ache. Graham reached slowly into his coat pocket. Both girls stiffened just a little. "I'm getting my phone," he said gently. "I want to make sure you're safe." Maya nodded, her expression serious. "Okay," Piper asked. "Are you calling our mom? I'm going to call someone who helps families find each other," Graham explained. "That's the right thing to do." Piper considered this. "Like helpers," yes, Graham said. "Exactly like helpers." He dialed the non-emergency number, stepping a few feet away while keeping the girls in sight. "Officer Jonah Navarro," the voice answered. Graham explained calmly, clearly. No drama, no exaggeration. 2 children, alone, calm, waiting. Navarro arrived within minutes, his patrol car stopping at the edge of the park. He approached slowly, flashlight angled down. "Well, hello there," he said warmly, crouching to the girl's level. I'm Jonah. Maya and Piper mirrored his posture instinctively. Hi, Piper said. We're waiting. Navarro glanced up at Graham briefly, then back to the girls. Waiting can be hard, but promises don't expire, Piper replied. Navarro blinked once. I know these two, he said softly to Graham. They come to the community center sometimes with their mom. Good kids. Polite. Quiet. Relief mixed with worry inside Graham. We need to follow protocol, Navarro continued. Make sure they're safe tonight while we locate their mother. I understand, Graham said. Navarro hesitated, then added, It's late. Social services would place them in an emergency shelter for the night. Graham imagined fluorescent lights, rows of cots, strangers. His jaw tightened. What if they stayed at my guest house, he said carefully, for one night only. With my housekeeper present. You can verify everything. You can come by in the morning. Navarro studied him, then studied the girls. Maya looked up. Would Atlas be there? Graham nodded. He wouldn't leave you. Navarro sighed quietly. All right, one night, paperwork, check-ins. Piper smiled just a little. Helpers can be kind, she said. Graham realized his hands were shaking. The Halstead estate loomed larger than usual as the gates opened. Maya and Piper pressed their faces to the window, silent. Inside the house glowed softly under recessed lights. Everything polished. Everything still. Rosa Delgado was already there when they stepped inside, coat half on, keys in hand. She stopped short when she saw the girls. Oh, she said softly. Hello, these are Maya and Piper, Graham explained. Just for tonight. Rosa understood immediately, not the details, but the weight. Well then, she said, gently kneeling. You must be cold. Piper nodded. Just our noses. Warm blankets, clean pajamas, hot cocoa with marshmallows. The house adjusted reluctantly to new sounds. Small footsteps. A quiet giggle. Atlas's tail thumping against the wall. Graham stood back, unsure where to place himself. As Rosa led the girls toward the guest room, Piper paused and looked around. This house is very big, she observed. It is, Graham agreed. Does it ever get scared being alone? Piper asked. Graham didn't answer right away. Maya touched the wall lightly. It feels like it's holding its breath. Rosa glanced at Graham, something knowing in her eyes. When the girls were tucked in, Atlas curled at the foot of the bed without being asked. Graham lingered in the doorway. Good night, Maya said politely. Thank you for staying, Piper added. The door closed. Graham walked down the hall alone. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't empty anymore. And for the first time in years, Graham Halstead realized something terrifying and beautiful. The silence had changed. Graham woke before the alarm. It wasn't the light. It wasn't the cold. It was the sound. Soft footsteps, a whisper. The faint clink of a spoon against a mug. For a moment he didn't recognize it. His house had never made sounds like that. He stepped into the hallway and followed the noise to the kitchen. Maya sat at the island, legs dangling from the stool, carefully stirring cocoa with both hands. Piper leaned against the counter beside Rosa, watching pancakes rise in the pan, as if witnessing a miracle. Good morning, Rosa said calmly, though her eyes held quiet amusement. Both girls turned at once. Good morning, Mr. Graham, Maya said politely. Piper smiled. Atlas snores. I do not, Graham replied automatically. Piper giggled. He does. Something in his chest loosened. Breakfast unfolded gently. No rush, no television. Just small questions and careful answers. What day is it? Piper asked. Tuesday, Graham said. Is Tuesday a school day? Maya asked. Yes. Maya nodded. Okay. There was no complaint, no sadness, just acceptance. Rosa caught Graham's eye. They're used to adjusting, her look said. After breakfast, Officer Navarro arrived as promised. He knelt to speak with the girls, explaining that they were helping find their mom. Piper listened carefully. "Helpers keep promises too," she asked. Navarro smiled. "We try our best." When he stepped aside with Graham, his voice dropped. "No leads yet. But we're checking hospitals and shelters. You did the right thing." Graham nodded, though something inside him resisted the idea that this was temporary. As Navarro left, Maya tugged Graham's sleeve. "Do you have work today?" she asked. "Yes," Graham answered automatically. "Oh," Piper said. "Who waits for you?" The question landed harder than any accusation. Graham opened his mouth, then closed it. "I'll be back," he said instead. Maya studied his face, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "We'll know where you are." For the first time, Graham didn't want to leave. Graham stood in his home office, phone pressed to his ear, eyes fixed on the city beyond the glass. "Rebecca," he said, "clear my schedule today." A pause. "I'm sorry, sir, today is packed." "Meridian Review Westridge call zoning, clear it," Graham repeated. "Family matter," silence stretched. "I understand," Rebecca finally said. "I'll handle it." The call ended. Graham turned. Maya and Piper stood in the doorway, Atlas between them like a sentry. "You're not going to work?" Piper asked. "I'll work later," Graham said. "From here?" Piper considered this. "Like helpers do." "Yes," he agreed. June Kessler arrived mid-morning, efficient and unassuming. She introduced herself, simply crouching to the girl's height. "I help find people," she said. Maya nodded. "Our mom is good at finding us." June smiled. "That helps." Graham walked June into his study, closing the door. "She didn't abandon them," Graham said quietly. "I know that." June nodded. "Everything about these girls says someone planned for them. Packed snacks, clean clothes, a routine." She opened her tablet. "We'll start with hospitals." As June worked, Graham stayed in the living room with the girls. They colored at the coffee table buildings for Maya, animals for Piper. Piper held up her drawing. "This is our mom." Graham leaned closer. "She looks kind." "She is," Piper said. "She just gets tired." Maya added, "She says tired isn't the same as gone." Something twisted inside Graham. By afternoon, June returned with her first update. "We found a woman admitted 5 days ago," she said carefully. "Unidentified. Construction site accident. She used to go by a different name." Graham felt the room tilt slightly. "What name?" he asked. June hesitated, then spoke. "Elena Mercer." The name echoed. "College. Autumn leaves." A laugh he hadn't heard in 20 years. Graham sat down slowly. Behind him, Piper's voice floated in. "Mr. Graham, yes. Are you okay?" He turned back toward the girls. "I will be," he said. "I just need to make sure I stay." County General smelled like disinfectant and quiet urgency. Graham followed June down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. "She's stable," June said. "Unconscious, but monitored." "Does she have family listed?" Graham asked. "No," June replied. "She came in without ID." They stopped outside a room. Inside lay a woman Graham recognized instantly, not as she was now, but as she had been. Elena. Time had touched her gently and cruelly all at once. Her hair was darker than he remembered, threaded with silver too early. Her face thinner, tired, but unmistakably her. Graham stood frozen. Dr. Priya Nandi joined them, voice calm and measured. "She's responding to sound intermittently, particularly familiar voices." Graham swallowed. "She has 2 daughters," he said quietly. "Yes," Dr. Nandi replied. "She murmurs about them often." Graham closed his eyes. 5 sleeps, promises, waiting. As they stepped back into the hall, Graham's phone buzzed. A message from Rosa. "They're doing puzzles. Piper says Atlas is winning." Relief washed through him. "Can they visit?" Graham asked. Dr. Nandi considered. "Briefly, with preparation. And only when you're ready." Graham nodded. He wasn't ready. Not yet. He needed to understand what this meant, not just for Elena, but for two little girls coloring quietly in his living room, believing that waiting was love and that promises didn't expire. Graham leaned against the wall, the weight of years pressing down. He had built an empire on certainty. And yet everything that mattered now rested on the fragile hope of a woman sleeping behind a hospital door and two 5-year-olds who had trusted him without knowing his name. For the first time, Graham Halstead understood something essential. Some lives don't need to be managed. They need to be protected. And this time, he wasn't walking away. Graham didn't go home right away. He sat in his car outside County General Hands, resting on the steering wheel, engine off. The city moved around him, people crossing streets, buses hissing to a stop, while he stayed perfectly still. Elena Mercer. The name circled his thoughts like a tide pulling back memories he'd buried on purpose. Late nights in the library, coffee that went cold while they argued about the future. The moment he chose ambition, believing love could wait. It hadn't. June Kessler's voice echoed in his head. Different name. 5 days ago. Construction site accident. Graham closed his eyes. Meridian Works, one of his subsidiaries. He straightened, a sharp clarity cutting through the haze. This wasn't about guilt yet. It was about responsibility. When he finally drove home, dusk had settled. The mansion lights were on. Inside, Maya and Piper sat cross-legged on the rug, assembling a puzzle of a lighthouse. Atlas lay between them, tail thumping softly. "You're back," Piper said, relieved. "I told you I would be," Graham replied. Maya looked up. "Did you find her?" "I found where she is," Graham said carefully. "She's sleeping. Doctors are helping her." Piper nodded. "Sleeping is okay. Sleeping means coming back." Maya studied his face. "You look different." Graham knelt beside them. "I learned something important today." Piper tilted her head. "About waiting," "Yes," Graham said. "About waiting." That night, after the girls were tucked in, Graham called a meeting, late, urgent, unmistakable. Full safety review, he told his executive team. Immediately. Every Meridian site. There was pushback. Timelines. Costs. Graham's voice didn't rise. "It's not optional." When the call ended, Graham stood alone in his office. The city lights reflected in the glass like a second world. For years, his name had meant power. Now it meant weight. And for the first time, he didn't want to put it down. The mansion settled into sleep slowly. Graham walked the hallway once, twice. When he reached the guest room, he stopped. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, Maya and Piper slept side by side, blankets tangled at their feet. Atlas lay curled at the foot of the bed, alert even in rest. Graham didn't step in. Instead, he leaned against the wall and slid down until he was sitting on the floor. The marble was cold through his suit. He stayed there listening. 2 even breaths. 1 steady dog sigh. "I used to think silence meant peace," he whispered to no one. "Turns out, it just means no one stayed." Atlas lifted his head and rested it against Graham's knee. Graham didn't move. For the first time in years, he let the quiet reach him. Morning came gently. Rosa found him in the kitchen, already awake, coffee untouched. "You didn't sleep," she said. "No," Graham admitted. Rosa glanced toward the hallway. Neither did they. Not fully. Maya and Piper appeared moments later, hair-rumpled, expressions serious. "Are we still helpers today?" Piper asked. "Yes," Graham said. Maya nodded. "Good. Helpers don't disappear." Graham felt the truth of that settle deep. Officer Navarro called mid-morning. "We've confirmed the woman's identity. She changed her name years ago." "I know," Graham replied. A pause. "You're handling this well." Graham looked at the girls across the room, drawing quietly. "I'm trying to handle it right," he said. That afternoon, Dr. Nandi called. "There's increased responsiveness," she reported, "especially when we mention her children." Graham closed his eyes, relief and fear threading together. "Can we visit?" he asked. "Yes," Dr. Nandi said. Briefly, prepared, calm. Graham ended the call and turned to Maya and Piper. "Would you like to see your mom tomorrow?" he asked. They didn't jump, they didn't shout, they just nodded. Together. That evening, Graham sat on the living room floor with Maya and Piper. Not across from them, with them. He held a piece of paper and crayons just like they did. "This place," he said gently, "can feel strange." Maya nodded. "Hospitals smell like thinking." Piper added, "And beeping." Yes, Graham agreed. There will be machines. They help. Maya asked, "Will Mom hear us?" "Doctors think so," Graham said. "So we'll talk like she can." Piper drew a large heart. Inside it, 3 smaller ones. "This is us waiting," she explained. Graham swallowed. Later alone, he visited Elena again. He stood beside her bed, careful, quiet. "Your girls are safe," he said softly. They waited. They did exactly what you taught them. The monitor ticked steadily. "I should have been there sooner," he continued. "I didn't know. But I know now." He paused. "And I'm not leaving." As he turned to go, her fingers twitched. Just slightly. At home, Graham packed a small bag for the girls. Snacks, sweaters, their drawings. When he finished, he noticed something new on the refrigerator. 2 drawings held up by magnets. A big house. A dog. 3 stick figures holding hands. The house no longer looked empty. That night, Graham stood in the doorway one last time. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we go together." Maya smiled in her sleep. Piper murmured, half awake, "Promises don't expire." Graham turned off the light, and for the first time in his life he felt ready for what morning might bring. County General looked different in daylight. In the morning, the hospital wasn't a place of fear, it was a place of focus. Graham parked in the staff garage, then walked around to the main entrance like a normal person, holding 2 tiny winter coats over his arm. Rosa walked beside him, calm as a metronome, Maya on her right, Piper on her left. Atlas stayed home. Dr. Nandi had gently explained animals weren't allowed on the floor they needed. Piper kept her eyes on the revolving door. "This is a spinner," she said solemnly, as if naming it would make it less intimidating. Maya squeezed her hand. "It's just a door," she whispered. "Doors open." Graham didn't correct her. Not all doors do, he thought. But this one had to. Dr. Priya Nandi met them in the hallway with a clipboard and a softness that didn't feel performative. She knelt down so her eyes were level with the girls. "Hi, Maya." "Hi, Piper," she said warmly. "I'm Dr. Nandi. I help your mom while she rests." Piper blinked slowly. Is she resting? Or is she lost? Dr. Nandi smiled gently. She's resting, and she's not lost. She's right here. Maya's shoulders relaxed as if her body had been bracing for days and didn't realize it. Dr. Nandi guided them to a quiet corner first. No rushing into the room, no surprises. She explained the machines in simple words. "This one listens to her heartbeat," she said. "This one helps us know she's comfortable." Piper pointed to the monitor. "So it's like a helper screen." "Yes," Dr. Nandi agreed. "A helper screen." Graham watched the girls absorb everything with a seriousness that made his chest ache. They weren't frightened. They were focused like tiny astronauts preparing for launch. Rosa placed a small folder into Maya's hands. "Your pictures," she reminded her softly. Maya nodded. Piper clutched her, drawing 3 hearts inside one bigger heart like it was a passport. Dr. Nandi opened the door. The room smelled clean, quiet. Light pooled on white sheets, soft as snowfall. Elena Hart lay there still and beautiful in a way that felt unfair. Not glamorous, just present. As if she were paused mid-sentence. Her hair was brushed back, her face calm beneath the careful watch of the machines. Maya stopped at the threshold. Piper did too. For one breath, Graham feared the weight of the moment would crush them. Then Maya stepped forward, small and certain. "Hi, Mom," she said. Piper followed, voice gentle. "We waited like you said." Graham stayed near the door, giving them space but not distance. Rosa stood behind the girls like an anchor. Maya reached for Elena's hand first. She didn't yank or cling. She simply placed her little fingers inside her mother's palm, as if returning something borrowed. Piper lifted her drawing and placed it on the bedside table. "This is you," she told Elena. "And this is us. And this is Mr. Graham's house." She paused. "It's big. But we're making it breathe." Graham's throat tightened. The phrase hit him like poetry delivered by someone who didn't know what poetry was. Maya leaned closer, her voice a whisper built of bravery. "Mom, it's Tuesday," she said. "A school day. We didn't go, but we can when you wake up." Piper nodded quickly. "And the dog likes us. He thinks we're safe." Graham watched, helpless in the best way. The girls didn't spiral. They didn't collapse. They stayed in their dignity, speaking gently, holding faith like a small lantern. Dr. Nandi stepped beside Graham and pointed discreetly at the monitor. "A small change. Not dramatic, but real." "There," she murmured. "See that increased activity when they speak." Graham didn't trust his voice. He nodded once hard. After a few minutes, Rosa touched the girl's shoulders. "Time," she said softly. "We'll come back." Maya kissed Elena's knuckles. Quick, respectful, almost grown up. Piper leaned in and whispered something only her mother could hear. Then she turned to Graham. "Can we come again tomorrow?" she asked. Graham looked at Elena, at the woman with the old name and the new life, at the mother who had taught 2 5-year-olds how to wait without breaking. "Yes," he said. "We'll come again." As they left the room, Maya glanced back once. "She's here," she whispered. Piper nodded. "Promises don't expire." Graham didn't answer. He simply followed them into the hallway, carrying something he'd never carried before, hope that felt heavier than money and far more valuable. Back at the estate, the day tried to become normal. Rosa made soup that smelled like comfort. Maya and Piper lined up crayons on the table with mathematical precision. Graham opened his laptop, then closed it again. His phone buzzed. June Kessler. He stepped into his office and shut the door. "I didn't want to say more in the hospital," June began, voice low. "But we need to talk, privately." Graham stood at the window, looking down at the city like it might explain him. "I'm listening," he said. June exhaled. "Elena Hart wasn't always Elena Hart." "I know," Graham replied. "Elena Mercer." "Yes," June said. "And the timeline is specific." Graham felt the muscles in his jaw tighten as if his body was trying to hold him together. June continued, careful but direct. "She filed a legal name change about 5 years ago, right after relocating back to Hollowmere. Before that, she was Elena Mercer on every record I found. And the girls Graham asked, already knowing the answer, would be a door opening inside him. They're listed as Maya Hart and Piper Hart," June said. "Birth certificates show Elena as their mother. Father section is blank." The room went silent in a way Graham had never heard before. Blank. Not unknown. Not deceased. Just empty. June's voice softened. "I ran what I could legally run. No speculation beyond facts. But Graham, you and Elena dated in college. Long enough that your name appears in her old academic emergency contact file." Graham swallowed. "That doesn't mean anything," he said, but it sounded like a man arguing with a mirror. June didn't push. She didn't need to. "It means we need to be responsible," she said. "If there's even a chance we handle it ethically. That means no assumptions. No emotional claims. If you want certainty, you'd need a proper legal process. A DNA test through appropriate channels." Appropriate channels. Graham nodded slowly, as if agreeing to a reality he couldn't yet touch. "What else?" he asked. June paused. There's an employment trail. Elena applied to Halstead Development twice in the last year. Entry-level office support. She didn't make it past HR screening. Graham's stomach dropped. She tried to reach me, he whispered. Yes, June confirmed. And there's more. She was working at a Meridian work site as a contracted cleaner. Off-the-books arrangement through a staffing subcontractor. Graham's hands curled into fists at his sides. Not rage at Elena, not rage at the world. Rage at the invisible layers of his empire, the way a company could swallow a human being and still call itself efficient. June spoke gently, but her words were steel. If you're going to fix this, it can't be just for her. It has to be for everyone who could become her. Graham turned from the window. I want to do this right, he said. June nodded. Then we start with 2 fronts. 1, Elena's care, best available, handled ethically. 2, Meridian Works' full compliance review, safety overhaul, and accountability. No scapegoating. Real reform. Graham took a slow breath, and the girls, June's voice softened again. The girls need stability, routine, truth in age-appropriate pieces. They don't need adult panic. Graham's mind flashed to Piper's face, asking if the house got scared being alone. To Maya's small hand, resting on a wall like she could feel the building's breathing. He opened his office door. Maya and Piper looked up from their crayons immediately, like they could sense weather shifting behind closed doors. Piper held up a drawing. It was a man and 2 girls and a big dog standing under a single street lamp. This is when we met, she said. It's our beginning. Graham crouched. What's the man's name? He asked carefully. Piper thought hard. Mr. Graham, Maya added. He stayed. Graham's throat tightened again. He didn't say, you might be mine. He didn't say, I might be yours. He said what was true and safe and solid. I'm going to keep staying, he promised. And we're going to help your mom wake up. Together. Piper nodded like she'd just heard the only language she trusted. Okay, she said. Because helpers don't disappear. Graham stood. In his entire life, no contract had ever felt more sacred than that. The next morning, Graham went to Meridian Works. Not with sirens, not with drama, with paperwork and a quiet that made grown men sit up straighter. He walked through the main office without raising his voice. Receptionists stood. Managers blinked like they'd seen a ghost. In the conference room, the site director Peterson arrived, sweating through his collar, smile too wide, hands too empty. Mr. Halstead, Peterson began. We weren't expecting, I know, Graham replied. Sit down. June Kessler was there too, seated at the far end, notebook closed. Rosa's presence wasn't needed in this room. This was adult work. Legal work. Graham slid a folder across the table. Read, he said. Peterson flipped pages. Safety inspection delays. Subcontractor staffing gaps. Incomplete incident reporting. A list of minor shortcuts that looked different when you stopped calling them minor. Peterson tried to laugh lightly. Construction is complicated. Accidents happen. Graham's eyes didn't change. A woman was injured 5 days ago, he said. Her name is Elena Hart. Peterson's smile flickered. I don't know that name. That's part of the problem, Graham replied. You should. He leaned forward slightly. Not threatening. Just present like gravity. I'm not here to ruin you, Graham said. I'm here to correct what my name allowed. Peterson cleared his throat. Sir, our cleaning services are outsourced. We don't control who they bring on. You control the standards. Graham cut in quietly. And I control you. The room went still. Graham continued, measured, deliberate. Effective, immediately independent safety audits across every Meridian site. A pause on non-essential deadlines. Updated protocols beyond minimum standard. Living wages for maintenance and contracted labor where we can legally implement it. Transparent incident reporting. No retaliation. Ever. Peterson blinked rapidly. This will cost millions, Graham nodded. Good. Peterson swallowed. Investors can learn, Graham said, voice calm as ice, or they can leave. June's pen finally moved. Just one line. Graham stood. You'll provide every record associated with staffing subcontractors. Today, you'll cooperate with any investigation. Fully. Peterson tried to protest. Graham raised one hand, not loud, not angry, just final. I built this company, Graham said. That means I also built its blind spots. Consider this the day we open our eyes. When he returned home, Maya and Piper were in the garden with Rosa, bundled in little coats, pointing at birds, like the world was still trustworthy. Graham watched from the doorway for a long moment. Piper saw him first and ran inside, small steps, big urgency, then stopped just short, remembering manners. Hi, she said. Hi, Graham replied. Maya approached more slowly. Did you help today? Graham nodded. I started, Piper smiled. Starting counts. That afternoon, they went back to County General. Dr. Nandy met them with careful optimism. She's still resting, she said. But we're seeing stronger responses now. When you speak, her body remembers. Graham guided Maya and Piper into the room, keeping his voice low, steady. Maya took Elena's hand again. Piper placed a new drawing beside the old one, this time a hospital bed with a sun above it. This is for waking, Piper explained. Graham stood at the foot of the bed, heart loud in his chest, then stepped closer. Elena, he said softly, your girls are here. The monitor ticked. Maya spoke, first voice gentle. Mom, we came back, like we said. Piper leaned in, whispering with all the authority of love. You don't have to hurry. Just don't get lost. Graham watched Elena's fingers. A small twitch. Not miraculous, not cinematic. Real. Dr. Nandy's eyes sharpened. She moved closer, watching the monitor. Elena, Graham whispered. Elena's eyelids fluttered just once, like a curtain testing the light. Maya held her breath. Piper squeezed her sister's hand. Graham didn't rush. He didn't demand. He simply stayed. Because now he understood the rule that mattered most. Hope doesn't need shouting. It needs presence. And in that room between a mother's breath and two 5-year-olds' faith, Graham Halstead finally learned how to be worthy of the word family. Elena woke the way dawn arrives quietly without asking permission. Graham was there when it happened, not leaning in, not pleading, just standing at the foot of the bed, hands loosely folded like a man who had finally learned how not to rush a miracle. Her eyelids fluttered again, then opened. The room seemed to inhale. Elena, Dr. Nandy said softly, already moving closer. You're in County General. You've been resting. Elena's eyes searched the ceiling, then the walls, then slowly found Graham. Recognition took a second longer, but when it came, it landed gently. Graham, she whispered, voice thin but certain. He didn't answer right away. He nodded once, as if any more might break the moment. Dr. Nandy checked vitals, spoke in calm, simple phrases. You had an accident. You're safe. Your daughters are safe. At that word, Elena's breath hitched. Maya. Piper, she asked, panic threading her tone. They're right outside, Graham said. We wanted to make sure you were ready. Elena swallowed, eyes shining. I'm ready. Rosa brought the girls in first, slow and careful. Maya stepped forward, all quiet courage. Piper followed, clutching her drawing like a key. Hi, Mom, Maya said, voice steady. You were sleeping. Piper nodded. We waited. Elena's face crumpled, not from fear, but relief. Tears slid sideways into her hair as she reached for them. Maya climbed onto the bed, with help Piper tucked under her arm, both fitting perfectly, like they'd never been apart. I'm so sorry, Elena murmured, kissing their foreheads. I never meant. Piper pressed a finger gently to Elena's lips. It's okay. Sleeping is coming back. Elena laughed softly through tears. You're right. Graham stayed back, giving them the space they deserved. Dr. Nandi watched the monitors with quiet satisfaction. Stronger responses. Steadier rhythm. After a few minutes, Rosa guided the girls back to chairs close enough to touch, but far enough to breathe. Elena's gaze found Graham again. "You stayed," she said. "Yes," he replied simply. Later, when the girls were coloring at the small hospital table, Elena and Graham spoke quietly. "I tried to find work." Elena said, not defensive, just honest. "I tried to keep us steady." "I know," Graham replied. "I know more than I did before." She studied his face, seeing the years and the changes. "They waited," she said softly. "I taught them that." "You taught them hope," Graham said. "They taught me presence." Elena closed her eyes, exhausted but peaceful. "Thank you," she whispered. Graham nodded. "We'll take this one step at a time." And for the first time since college, they agreed without arguing. The truth didn't come all at once. It came in pieces small enough to hold. That evening, after Elena had rested and the girls had eaten dinner with Rosa in the hospital lounge, Graham sat on the floor with Maya and Piper, backs against the wall, legs stretched out in a line. "This is a talking corner," Piper declared. "Where voices are quiet." Graham smiled. "A good rule." Maya looked up at him. "Mom says you knew her before?" "Yes," Graham said. "A long time ago." "Were you friends?" Piper asked. "Yes," he replied. "We cared about each other." Maya tilted her head. Like family, Graham took a careful breath. Like people who hadn't learned yet how to be family. They considered this. Piper nodded. "Grown-ups learn slower." "Yes," Graham said. "They do." Maya asked the next question without fear. "Are you going to stay?" "Yes," Graham answered immediately. "With Mom?" Piper asked. "With you," Graham said. "And with her, if she wants that too." They were quiet for a moment. Then Piper smiled, satisfied. "Okay." Maya added, "We don't need big answers." Graham felt something warm and steady settle in his chest. Later he spoke with Elena alone. "No accusations, no rehearsed apologies. I didn't know," he said, "and I should have been reachable." Elena nodded. "I changed my name because I needed a life that could stand without waiting." "I understand that now," Graham said. She studied him. "Do you?" He met her eyes. "I'm learning." They agreed on boundaries, on patience, on doing everything legally and gently. No assumptions, no pressure on the girls. Whatever future formed would be chosen, not forced. When the girls returned, Piper climbed into Elena's bed and announced, "Mr. Graham stays." "That's the plan." Elena laughed, then winced slightly. Graham raised an eyebrow. "Is that official?" Maya nodded solemnly. "We voted. 2 votes to 0. Graham didn't argue. That night, driving home alone, he realized something remarkable. He wasn't afraid of the truth anymore, because the truth told with care didn't shatter children. It anchored them. The news broke without asking permission. A headline, a photo, a question mark. Halstead CEO linked to hospitalized woman and 2 children. Graham read it once, then again. He didn't curse. He didn't throw the phone. He called his attorney. "Protect their privacy," he said. "No statements about the children. Ever." By noon, reporters gathered at the gates. Graham didn't meet them there. He went to the hospital. Elena saw the worry on his face immediately. "What happened?" Graham said gently. "Nothing that changes what matters." Maya looked up from her coloring. "Noise goes away if you don't feed it." Piper nodded, "Like pigeons." Graham smiled despite himself. "Exactly." With legal counsel, Graham released a brief statement confirming concern for a hospitalized employee-connected individual, requesting privacy and announcing an independent review of labor and safety practices. No names, no details. The story shifted from scandal to responsibility. At County General, Elena continued to improve. Physical therapy, quiet laughter, moments of tired joy. One afternoon, Graham brought a small framed photo to her room. It showed Maya and Piper in the garden atlas between them, all three looking toward the camera, as if surprised by happiness. Elena touched the frame. "You're changing your life." "Yes," Graham said. "I think it was changing me anyway." That evening, the girls fell asleep in the hospital suite, heads touching like parentheses. Graham stood by the window, city lights below. "I don't want to rush this," Elena said softly behind him. "I don't want to rush either," he replied. Silence settled, comfortable, earned. Outside, the storm of attention passed by the building, loud but distant. Inside, something steadier held. Two 5-year-olds slept without fear. A mother breathed evenly. A man who once measured everything in square footage now measured time in staying. And for the first time, Graham Halstead knew exactly which measure mattered. Elena was discharged on a quiet Friday morning. No cameras, no statements. Just Rosa's steady hands, Graham's open car door, and two small coats zipped carefully to the chin. The guest house had been prepared, not lavish, just thoughtful. Sunlight through clean windows, a table small enough to feel human, space that invited breathing. "This is temporary," Elena said, not defensively, just clearly. "Temporary can still be kind," Graham replied. Maya explored the rooms like a careful surveyor. Piper checked the couch for softness and announced approved. Rosa made soup. Graham pretended not to hover. Elena rested. By afternoon, the girls were drawing at the kitchen table, legs swinging. Graham watched from the doorway, surprised by how natural it felt to arrive somewhere and be expected. "Will you have meetings?" Maya asked. "Yes," Graham said. "Will you come back?" Piper added. "Yes," he answered without hesitation. They nodded, satisfied. That night, Elena joined him on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. "I don't want to owe you," she said. "You don't," Graham replied. "This isn't debt, it's presence." They sat in companionable quiet, the city distant and small. Inside, Maya tucked Piper in, whispering rules they had made together. "Helpers stay," Maya said, "and promises don't expire," Piper replied. Graham turned off the porch light. For the first time, the night felt like a pause, not an ending. Change didn't arrive with speeches. It arrived with schedules rewritten. At Halstead Development, Graham implemented what he had promised: living wage standards, where legally possible, independent safety audits, transparent reporting. Not charity, structure. The Heart Promise Fund launched quietly: emergency housing support, childcare stipends, job retraining designed with Elena's input, guided by community partners. At home, change was smaller and louder. Lunch notes in crayon, shoes by the door that weren't his, a refrigerator that finally held drawings. One afternoon, Graham returned early and found Maya counting steps in the hallway. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Making sure the house remembers us," she said. Piper added, "so it doesn't get lonely." That evening, Elena cooked. Not perfectly, comfortably. "This is strange," she said, smiling. "Being safe without being small." Graham nodded. Being responsible without being distant. They didn't define the future. They let it arrive. In the weeks that followed, attention faded. The story lost its edge and gained context. Inside the gate, a rhythm formed: school mornings, therapy afternoons, quiet dinners. Nothing dramatic, everything real. And in that steadiness, a man who once built cities learned to build something harder: trust. Winter returned to Maple Row Park with soft snow. The old bench had been replaced, new wood, warm finish. A small plaque sat on the backrest, modest and unassuming. Graham walked the path with Elena beside him. Maya and Piper ran ahead, boots crunching, laughter floating back like proof. They stopped at the bench. Piper climbed up first. "This is where we waited." Maya nodded. "And where we didn't break." Graham rested a hand on the bench, feeling the grain. Elena slipped her fingers into his. Atlas trotted over tail high, then sat content. The girls placed two small mittens on the bench side by side. For remembering, Piper said. For staying, Maya added. They stood together as the snow fell lightly, the city distant, the moment complete. Graham looked at Elena. I thought I was rescuing someone that night. Elena smiled. We were rescuing each other. Maya took Graham's hand. Piper took Elena's. 4 steps back down the path. 4 shadows moving as one. Behind them, the plaque caught the light, where lost hearts find home, and the final truth. Quiet certain settled like snow. They didn't find a house that night. They found someone who stayed. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Until our next story.